So let's kind of move on from the WBC. We want to dive into last week's fights, and we want to start off with what I thought was a star-making performance for David Morrell against Businulai. But it's also on a kind of on a somber note. From last that we heard, Yuri Businulai was still currently in a coma, right? So this was a medically induced coma. And we don't, the only reason that we're starting off by saying that because we don't want to kind of overlook that. We know that every time a boxer steps into that squared circle, they are putting their life at risk. And this is only getting attention because it was a pretty high profile fight on Showtime. So we want to send our thoughts out and prayers to that. But with that said, I was actually really impressed with Morrell. And this is somebody who I thought was just was more of a kind of just pretty veneer. But once you kind of got down to the actual materials and substance of it, that really didn't have the kind of ingredients that needed to be a superstar. But I saw some things in this fight, and he actually kind of convinced me that he could be a rising star at this is at 168 pounds, right?
168 pounds, man.
At super middleweight right now. So there was a trinket that he has. I don't want to speak too much onto it because from my understanding, Canelo Alvarez was the undisputed champion at this weight class. But we'll speak because Boston, you've been throwing this guy up and just saying you've been championing him for a minute. So kind of tell us, like, what did you think about this performance, and then what do you see him going on from here?
I thought it was a tremendous performance, and look, and I had said this in the previous show. This was going to be a huge step up for him. I mean, this was going to be a huge step up for him. And Yuri Businulai, he came to win that fight. I mean, he was not going there just to collect a check, man. Morrell is the goods, man. He can do every single thing you could possibly want inside of a boxing ring. The one thing that concerned me, and I bring it up because he has been calling out David Benavidez for quite some time. He allowed Yuri Businulai to push him back in the middle rounds of that fight. I think he started off by opting to fight off of his back foot at first to try to walk him into a shot because he had a tough time landing shots from medium and close range. He got on his back foot, but when he got on his back foot, Yuri Businulai didn't let him get back onto his front foot. He looked a little bit uncomfortable at times being pressed by Yuri Businulai, despite some of the bravado and the antics you saw him smiling and showboating. I really think that Yuri Businulai did a good job of pressing him at times. And if you're in there against a guy like David Benavidez, you cannot allow him to get moving downhill and get on his front foot because Benavidez is going to be throwing a lot more punches, and those are rounds he's going to be able to win if he's on his front foot. Now, the one thing I will caveat that by saying is that David Benavidez is not as defensively responsible as Yuri Businulai is. Yuri Businulai showed us he showed us a lot of tools in that, and I really want to give him the credit he's due. I think that Yuri Businulai, if he comes back, takes a year off, comes back healthy, to me, he's a top 4, top 5 guy in that division. And he got washed. He got washed by Morrell. But moving forward, I was really hoping that he would get the shot at David Benavidez. Ronnie Shields was on another YouTube podcast last week and hinted pretty strongly that that fight was in fact going to be next. And I was surprised when the Casual Rand sent that text out saying that the Plant Benavidez fight had been made. I don't know where he goes from here. It's slim pickings out there at 168 pounds on the PBC side. The one name that is out there is Demetrius Andrade.
I knew you was going to say
And if you were Al Heyman and you still have got and you've still got to stick up your ass for Demetrius Andrade, and you want to stick it to him, you throw him in there with this against this guy. You want to fight? You ain't been fighting Demetrius. You want to fight? Okay, we got to fight for you. Come here and fight David Morrell off of a year of inactivity, and that's gonna be a tough fight for Demetrius. I don't think skill wise it's as bad, but the physicality of Morrell is going to be a lot at that weight. So
a young guy. He's only 24 years old.
Only 24 years old. He's fresh. The other
he
guy
got less than 10 fights.
He's with 7 knockouts.
Yeah, and fighting undefeated fighters and fighting 12-round fights with less than 10 fights. So compare and contrast that to your favorite prospect / contender, i.e. Jerome Boots Ennis, who wasn't fighting 12 rounders till his like 30th fight or something like that.
In his third fight, he fought a 12-round fight.
12 rounder, I guess, an undefeated fighter. So
to me, man, like when you say where do you go next, I think his success is going to be his sort of like his failure, not failure, but like his roadblock. Like, because right now he's the regular WBA champion.
He's got the Tank Davis belt. Yeah.
So with that, he's not a mandatory for any of the sanctioning bodies. And Canelo's not going to fight him. So your question was right. Where do we go? Because he can't force mandatory on anybody. So and then
at least he's not Mexican. So right.
He is not Mexican, but now,
so Canelo can't make that excuse.
Yeah.
If Canelo vacates or gets stripped, and I suspect he will, this will be the first belt that he drops, is probably this one. Now Morrell gets elevated. And now I think you're in a better position. You're going to have guys potentially wanting to fight you, although I don't see many guys in this division dying to fight him. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe an Uzcategui fight.
Hey, what about that Skull? You remember?
Well, there's Willie School. Willie School who's out there, and I'm sure that those two guys both being around the same age. How old is School, Randy? You ever pulled up?
Nah.
School, he's listed at like 28, so add 2 or 3 years. Maybe he's 31. These guys might know each other pretty well. Maybe that I'm there for that fight.
He's 30.
I'm there for that. He's 30.
Wow, he's 30. Wow.
School is 30, so he's probably more like 33 or some shit like that. 34.
6 foot.
I'm there for that fight. I'm there for that Willie School fight. But that's high risk, low reward for Morrell. School is out there in promotional purgatory. I don't know who he signed to, what network he fights on, and I don't know that.
So Boston, you gave a lot of accolades to Ados, Euro Busino Live.
Yeah,
but what do you think? We do. He got stopped in the last round, and he was competitive throughout. But was there anything that you would have liked seen different from his corner?
Yeah. I think that after that first knockdown, they should have stopped the fight. He's too far down on points at that juncture. There's no point in because what ended up happening? He takes 2 massive shots right after that, and those 2 big shots could have been the difference between him sitting with a massive headache right now but still able to eat food and play with his kids and talk to his loved ones in a medically induced coma. You know, I'm not a doctor. That's just my opinion. I think, yes, that fight should have been stopped. If it were me, I'm stopping that fight after the ninth, because he's not hurt. He's not hurting Morrell. Maybe even earlier, because you're too far down on points. I don't think that Yerbosino Lai had. I don't think he won maybe a round going through the seventh, going into the eighth. So you need a knockout at that point. And there was nothing that led me to believe that Yerbosino Lai was going to be able to knock this kid out. And he's continually taking big, hard shots. Morrell is a big, strong kid at that weight. I mean, he is a natural 168 pounds. I mean, he was hitting him with some hellacious shots. So, yes, I think that fight should have been stopped a lot sooner. Yeah, that's what I would.
How much responsibility you give on the refs or the doctor, ringside doctor?
I think you divide up that responsibility evenly. I think the doctor is looking at the ref. Tony Weeks was the ref, if I'm not mistaken, and Weeks is a pretty seasoned guy. And Yerbosino Lai is fighting back. He's fighting back.
Yeah, he had some moments.
He has some moments, right? So if you're Weeks, when do you maybe you go talk to the corner and say, I just don't know.
Yeah, like I don't know. So I'm seeing, like,
yeah. Weeks, I believe, called the doctor in at one point during that fight, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he called the doctor in. So I take that back. I don't know about evenly responsible. I think the responsibility lies primarily on the corner in that scenario. I take that back. I don't want to put any responsibility on a guy like Weeks or the doctor. That's the corner.
It's the corner, because the corner knows that fighter.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, the corner knows that fighter and knows that he's being responsive to the things that you're telling him, and like his whole demeanor. Like, he's been in that corner and you've been training with him for months at this point. So you know if he's like he don't have anything else to give you and he's getting pounded. So yeah, it is the responsibility of that corner to throw that towel in or let him. I mean, but this whole like mantra of like dying on your shield, you know what I'm saying? We need to get away from that. You know what I'm saying? Like Wilder used to say, man, I want to die on my shield. And he got mad when his corner threw in the towel. But hey, I'd rather live and fight another day, bro.
Yeah, then he was crying at the press conference after the Hellenius fight, talking about fighters taking too much punishment and all that. So yeah, he had a come to Jesus moment. Somebody said something to him, or maybe he came to that realization all on his own, man. It's it was tough, man, because it was such a good fight. Such a good fight. I
thought it was a good fight. I thought it was a perfect test for David Morrell at this point. And he's kind of sold me on the goods. I think that just with his boxing style, it just got, like I say, he goes for the knockout. He's shown what he's trying to, because there was something that Ados talked about, that Cubans are great amateur fighters, but you don't find too many good pro fighters. And
that's not true. I think he was just talking shit.
He was, but if you think about it, I mean, there's kind of two standout Cuban fighters who have kind of done that. I'm talking about since like the 90s going forward or whatnot, but they've it's been more than like, I'm talking about Urelkis Gamboa. I wasn't including him in there, but there had
Lara was a
Lara, and then so it was Cap, right? You know what I'm saying? If you kind of dig a little bit deeper on there. But I think that when we think about stars, because we thought that Urelkis Gamboa was going to be that next star.
Oh, he was that star.
He
was that star, but he got ducked. Guys like Mikey Garcia and Juan Manuel Lopez, with the help of Bob Arum, ducked Yuriorkis Gamboa, and now everybody wants to fight Yuriorkis Gamboa. All these dudes you see hopping in there, and this is not for you guys, but for our audience out there, the younger guys who don't remember prime Yuriorkis Gamboa, I strongly recommend you go back and you watch prime Yuriorkis Gamboa. I mean, I think
he was the shit until whoever talked him into fighting Terrence Crawford.
Right.
Whoever did that ruined that man's career.
That was a bad decision.
Yeah, I mean, but he had no other action. He was very, very inactive. Remember, because Gamboa, well, to be fair, remember Gamboa was signed to 50 Cent.
Yep.
If y'all remember correctly.
That was a terrible decision. But remember, Bob Arum had him and Juan Manuel Lopez at the same time. And what he kept on saying, I'm going to let it marinate. And they were in the same weight class. They were fighting on the same card. But then Juan Manuel Lopez got exposed out there, but he never got a chance to fight him and do that. But Bob Arum had both of them.
He did, and Bob Arum came out and has recently admitted in candid interviews, I don't know if it's his old age or what, but he was protecting Juanma from Yuriorkis Gamboa.
Jeez, come on.
He admitted it. But yeah, that Universal lie, that's a little bit of gamesmanship, because if I'm David Morrell, I'm saying the same thing about those Kazakh fighters, right? Y'all got one dude, right? They got Gennady Golovkin, and they got this guy Janbek, who just was given a belt, is an email champ, right? Way more Cuban champions than there have been Kazakh world champions, and the legacy continues, man. And you've got this kid Robesi Ramirez at 126, who is probably going to be the next Cuban champion.
Yeah, and a lot of times, because earlier it was a lot of the Cuban fighters had to defect and come over, and a lot of times they were a lot older in age. They probably took off about 4 years, stuff like that, birth certificate. So that's something that we did have to consider. So
that's right. And Morrell defected at the age of what, 21?
Yeah,
that's bad news for the rest of these guys.
But before we head out, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe and comment on our page. We've been building up our pundit community at this point, and it's been a good thing. Y'all have good insight, and we do take your comments and we use that to try to improve upon the show. But with that said, we want to make sure that y'all tune in. We're going to have our shows coming out. We're going to move it up to Thursday, I believe. But make sure that you subscribe and you will get notifications. With that said, I'm Professor Nims. I'm signing off for my man, the Casual Rand.
Peace.
Boston Jarrett.
Peace.
Coach Dave is not with us tonight, but we make up the pundits of pugilism, and we thank y'all for rocking with us tonight.